Hello, I'm Deborah Hamilton, and welcome to another installment of Nipped in the Bud, Not in the Butt. I own a law practice and mediation practice that helps people resolve conflicts between themselves involving animals. So today our topic is going to be the neighbor's barking dog. What do you do? Usually people have a hard time talking to each other when a barking dog is involved in the disagreement between them. You can go over and have a conversation, and a number of times the neighbor with the barking dog gets very defensive. Have you ever been part of that conversation? My dog has to bark. What do you mean dogs bark? We're allowed to bark between 6 a.m. and 10 p.m. They get very defensive. And then you get very defensive because, well, I sleep past 6 a.m. or I work nights, or it just is not necessarily something you want to hear for a long period of time. I happen to own 11 dogs. I'm crazy, I know, but I own 11 dogs. My dogs, when they bark, it is not a white noise to me, but it could be. And that's usually what happens in my practice, my mediation practice, when I help people realize their dogs bark for a long time. It becomes a white noise. You don't hear it, but the neighbor hears it. It doesn't become a white noise for the neighbor who doesn't have a dog. So let me tell you about a case I had. I'm going to change the names and a few of the facts because, of course, let me define mediation for you again, because every time we do nipped in the bud, not in the butt, I want you to understand what mediation is. Mediation is the voluntary process where you come and have a neutral third party help you have a conversation with someone you're in conflict with about an animal. It could be divorce, it could be neighbors, it could be trust and estates, it could be a breeder and owner discussion. Whatever it is, mediation enables you to have that conversation you haven't been able to have between each other because of all the emotion that surrounds the pet. So today, when we're talking about the barking dog, I actually had a mediation where I helped neighbors discuss the barking dog, change their pattern, and live happily ever after, and actually come back to me 2 or 3 times when things had changed, because to come and see me enabled them to have that conversation they didn't feel they could have one-to-one because of the emotion involved, both because I'm upset that your dog is barking and I'm upset that you're complaining about my dog barking. That's the deal. So I had a client who came to me about a family who had 2 dogs in the front yard who would scare his children walking to school every single day. And he had talked to the dog owners a number of times, and they said, listen, we go to work. We have to let the dogs out at the same time as your children walk by because we go to work and they need to get outside. What can you do? This seems like an impossible dilemma because my kids are walking by. I don't want to have to drive them to school. I've been doing that for a few months and I'd really like them to walk. And I need to get to work. My dogs need to be out. What can I do? We sat down in a mediation in my office and discussed the ways in which things could change on both sides of the fence, so to speak, so that the children could walk by and the dogs could go out. It turned out that the backyard fence was fenced in as well. The backyard was fenced in as well. And they could put the dogs out back, but the dogs liked it better out front because there was more going on, more for them to see. The neighbor across the street said, well, could you just put them out in the backyard between 7 and 7:30 when my kids walk by, and then put them out in the front yard afterwards? Would that work for you? Would that half-hour difference make a difference in your preparation for going to work in the morning and the dog's ability to get outside? When the neighbors with the dogs realized it was only a half hour, and in fact the dogs could go outside in the back as well as outside in the front, they actually made that change. They decided, let's try it for a month. Let's try it for 6 weeks. And we came back and had another follow-up mediation after they had changed their conduct a little bit. And it turned out that it wasn't such a hardship for the children to leave between 6:45 and 7:15 instead of 7 and 7:30. And it wasn't such a hardship for the neighbors to put the dogs out either later than 7:15 or in the backyard between 6:45 and 7:15. It worked out really, really well for everyone, and we kept checking in and checking in and checking in, and everyone felt as if they were heard, respected, and understood. I often liken mediation to baseball. And you might think I'm going out on a limb here, but hear me out for 1 minute. When you are a catcher, or actually a fielder in baseball, when you're fielding that ball, when someone comes up to bat, you know the likelihood they're going to hit it is pretty high. These are the major leagues. They're supposed to hit the ball. It may come to you. So you're really focused on this person who is at bat. That's sort of the information that's coming at you from someone who might not necessarily like your pet or might not necessarily want you to complain about their pet. So let's think about it in terms of I'm the outfielder and I hear these things coming about my dogs and about how they're barking, or I'm giving some information and getting really negative information about asking someone not to have their dog out at a certain time. And I'm focused on that one thing, the throw, the things that are being thrown at me, both as the dog owner and the person who doesn't want the dog to be barking when they need to rest or want to enjoy their property. The pitcher throws, the hitter hits, and here comes the ball. When you're getting that information, you have a choice to catch it. And when you catch it, you need to decide where you're going to throw it. Are you going to throw it to first to get the batter out? Are you going to throw it to home to get the guy on third out? Are you going to throw it to the second baseman to get the guy out, and then the second baseman will get it? There's so many things going on in your head. And it's the same when you're having a conflict with your neighbor about a barking dog. There are so many things going on in your head. You can't really take a minute. You're so emotional, you can't take a minute. But in baseball, they have to take the minute. They're emotional too. They have to take the minute to focus and decide, where am I going to throw it? Who am I going to throw it to? And what's the best play right here? That moment in conflicts between people about animals is where mediation comes in and helps you focus on the next decision you want to make. All this information's coming at you, usually negative. The person complaining about your dog and complaining about somebody's dog and not feeling as if you're being heard. The mediator comes in and helps you decide how to field that ball in your glove and take the split second to get it to the right next play. You can either meet anger with anger, which is you can go rev your engine in front of their house or play loud music or really be in their face about their dogs. Or you can hold that ball in your glove for just a minute, think about the enjoyment of your property and recognizing they want enjoyment of their property and their dogs, and see how you can have this conversation where you're going to be supported and the dog owner is going to be supported. And that would be that minute in the glove that we all know if we're baseball fans, where they sit and they decide what I'm going to do, the moment in the glove. And that's where mediation comes in. It gives you that moment in the glove to decide which path you want to take. And if you mediate the conflict between people about animals, you definitely get that chance to decide who it is you want to be in this conversation and in this discussion. At the end of the day, you make the throw. If you do it on your own, it may go awry, they may miss it, or and then if they miss it, then it escalates. It goes out in the field and everybody's running after it and it's like, oh my God. Or you make a dead-on throw because you have help in listening, respecting, and understanding someone else's point of view as well as your own. And you get the fact that someone's there to support you and how you feel, to understand you and to respect you for how you feel. In The Neighbor with the Barking Dog, it is always, always important to take the time to have a conversation. If you can't have that conversation, remember the baseball metaphor. Remember that there's always that moment you need to take that enables you to have that conversation. I always tell people who consult with me who may not want to mediate or who may always say, If I had a dime for everyone who said this, I'd be a rich woman. I would mediate. I'm really reasonable, but my neighbor isn't. They're unreasonable and they'd never mediate. If I spoke to their neighbor, they'd say the same thing. And so what I would hope you would do is do three things. There are only three things you need to do. Don't have the conversation with your neighbor when you're angry. Don't go over there and yell when you are at your wit's end. When you do ask to have a conversation, go somewhere else. Don't stand over the fence and yell at each other. Because even if you start out talking, most of my clients end up yelling. Go somewhere else. Go have a cup of coffee at Starbucks or whatever, local Panera Bread, whatever you have local, the diner. Go sit down and have a conversation. And finally, listen to what they have to say as well as tell them what you think. Listening is the most powerful tool in conflict resolution, not speaking. This is Deborah Hamilton. This has been another nipped in the bud, not in the butt, rendition of how to resolve conflicts that arise between people involving animals. You have a great day.